My name is Amanda Rose Hutchison. I'm 32 years old, and the night my mother grounded me in front of 15 relatives was the same night her lies began to collapse. It happened in my aunt's living room. The smell of baked ham and cinnamon candles was still hanging in the air. Everyone had wine in their hands. My cousins were laughing. My brother Tyler was pretending to help clear plates, like he always did when he wanted to look responsible. And then my mother stood up. She didn't yell. That would have been easier. She used that tight, polite voice she saves for when she wants to look calm and reasonable. "Amanda," she said, pressing her napkin down beside her plate, "you've embarrassed this family long enough. Hand me your car keys. You're not leaving this house tonight." I actually laughed at first. I thought she was joking. I'm 32 years old. I pay my own rent. I work full-time. I live 40 minutes away. But she didn't smile. 15 pairs of eyes turned toward me. "Mom, what are you doing?" I whispered. "You've proven you can't be trusted," she continued, still standing, "and until you can behave like an adult, I'll treat you like the child you insist on being." The room went quiet in that suffocating way where you can hear forks touching plates. My Aunt Cheryl looked down at her lap. My cousins exchanged awkward glances. Tyler smirked, just barely, just enough. "I'm not a child," I said, feeling my face burn, "and you can't ground me." Her lips tightened. "After what you pulled, you should be grateful I'm only grounding you." That's when the murmuring started. "What did she do?" someone whispered. "Is it about the money?" another voice said. Money. Of course it was about money. I stood there, heart pounding, suddenly aware that everyone believed something terrible about me. And then the front door opened. No one knocked. A tall man in a navy suit stepped inside, holding a leather briefcase. "I'm looking for Amanda Hutchison," he said calmly. The room froze. My mother's face drained of color, and that was the moment everything shifted. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand something. Families don't explode in a single night. They crack, slowly, quietly, over years, and by the time they shatter, everyone pretends they didn't hear the breaking. If you've ever been the scapegoat in your family, the one blamed, misunderstood, or talked about instead of talked to, pause right now and subscribe, because this story might feel uncomfortably familiar, and I promise you, the truth always comes out. Now, let me take you back. Growing up, I was the dramatic one. Tyler was the golden boy. That's not bitterness talking. It was a role assignment. Tyler got praised for average grades. I got questioned for anything less than perfect. If Tyler forgot to take the trash out, Mom said he was tired. If I forgot, she said I was irresponsible. If Tyler borrowed money, it was an investment in his future. If I asked for help with textbooks, it was poor planning. My father passed away when I was 14. After that, everything in our house became about control. My mom clung to structure like it was oxygen. Rules tightened, expectations sharpened, and somehow I became the outlet for her anxiety. "You're too emotional," she would say whenever I cried. "You're too sensitive," whenever I tried to defend myself. "Why can't you be more like Tyler?" That sentence followed me into adulthood. When I chose marketing instead of nursing, she called it unstable. When I moved out at 24, she said I was abandoning family. When I dated someone she didn't approve of, she told relatives I was going through a phase. It was never loud abuse. It was constant undermining. Small cuts, paper-thin wounds that still bleed. But the real shift happened last year. That's when my grandfather died. He wasn't wealthy by celebrity standards, but he owned land, property, investments, enough that inheritance would matter. And for the first time in my life, I felt seen. Grandpa used to tell me, "You think differently, Mandy. Don't let anyone shrink you." He was the only one who called me Mandy. At his funeral, he held my hand in his will video recording. I remember that clearly because I had to help him set up the camera when he insisted on recording personal messages for each of us. "You deserve stability," he'd said quietly. At the time, I didn't understand. After the funeral, everything got strange. Meetings happened that I wasn't invited to. Tyler suddenly started visiting Mom more often. I overheard them whispering in the kitchen during Thanksgiving. And then, 2 weeks before the reunion dinner, the one where I got grounded, I received a text from my mother. "We need to talk about what you did." I stared at my phone for a long time. What I did? I called her immediately. She didn't answer. Instead, Tyler called. "You really messed up, Amanda," he said without greeting. "Messed up how?" He sighed heavily, like he was disappointed but not surprised. "Mom found out about the withdrawal." "What withdrawal?" "The one from Grandpa's trust." I felt my stomach drop. I didn't withdraw anything. There was a pause. "Amanda," he said slowly, "don't lie. It makes it worse." I hung up shaking. I hadn't touched a single cent. I didn't even know how to access the trust. When I tried to call Mom again, she sent one message: "We'll discuss this with the family." And that's how I ended up in that living room. Grounded, accused, humiliated. But here's what no one in that room knew. 3 days before that dinner, I had received a voicemail from a law firm. The message was brief. "Miss Hutchison, this is regarding the Hutchison estate. There appears to be a discrepancy in documentation. Please return our call." I had planned to call back the next morning, but work got busy. And then the dinner invitation came. Now, that same man from the law firm was standing in my aunt's doorway, looking straight at me. "I'm Daniel Reeves," he said calmly. "I represent the estate of Harold Hutchison." My grandfather. My mother's hand tightened around the back of her chair. "This isn't appropriate. This is a private family dinner." Mr. Reeves didn't flinch. "Which is exactly why I came in person." Every instinct in my body told me something was wrong. Not with me, with her. He opened his briefcase. "Amanda Hutchison," he repeated. "Yes," I said, my voice barely steady. He pulled out a sealed envelope. "I believe you've been falsely accused." The room erupted in whispers. My mother stepped forward quickly. "This is absurd. She's been withdrawing money without authorization." "Actually," Mr. Reeves replied evenly, "the withdrawals were authorized." My brother froze. "By whom?" my aunt asked. Mr. Reeves looked directly at my mother. "That's what we're here to clarify." And that was the exact moment I realized something terrifying. I wasn't being grounded for stealing money. I was being silenced because someone else had taken it, and they needed me to look guilty first. Mr. Reeves began pulling out documents, bank statements, signature forms, transfer records. My mother's breathing became shallow. Tyler avoided my eyes. "Amanda," Mr. Reeves said carefully, "did you sign any authorization forms granting power of attorney over your inheritance?" "No," I answered immediately. He nodded slowly. "Then we have a problem." The room felt smaller, hotter. My Aunt Cheryl whispered, "Linda, what's going on?" My mother straightened her shoulders, regaining that polished composure. "This is a misunderstanding. Amanda has always struggled with responsibility. She probably forgot what she signed." "I didn't sign anything," I said firmly. Her lips tightened. "There's a signature here," he said quietly, "and it's not yours." Silence. I could hear my own heartbeat. Then he added the words that changed everything. "It appears someone forged your name." And my mother turned slowly toward my brother.
Tyler's words didn't explode, they sank, slowly. He had been in debt for almost a year, and my mother had promised to fix it, no matter what it took. For a moment, I couldn't feel my hands. The living room that had felt suffocating minutes earlier now felt hollow, like all the air had been sucked out. My aunt was the first to speak. Debt from what? Tyler pressed his lips together. He looked smaller somehow, like the golden shine had finally worn off. "The app," he said quietly. "It wasn't ready. I told everyone it was almost finished, but I needed more time, more developers. I took out loans." "How much?" someone asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. My mother answered for him. "Enough." That one word carried years of justification. Mr. Reeves remained still, observant. Regardless of the reason, the funds belonged to Amanda. "I know that," my mother snapped, her composure completely gone now. "But what was I supposed to do? Let him drown? He's my son." The way she said it, "He's my son." Like I wasn't her daughter, like I was an external account. I felt the sting, but it didn't pierce the same way it used to. It clarified something that had always been foggy. I wasn't the problem. I was the resource. "You could have asked me," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. The room shifted toward me again, but this time not with suspicion, with attention. "And what would you have said?" my mother challenged. "I would have said yes," I answered honestly. Everyone blinked. Even Tyler. I would have helped him. He's my brother. Tyler's shoulders dropped slightly. But I would have needed to choose it, not to be robbed. Silence. My mother's eyes hardened. "You're pretending to be generous now that you're the victim." "No," I said calmly. "I'm choosing not to be the villain you painted." The tension in the room wasn't loud anymore. It was heavy, thick. Mr. Reeves checked his watch. "Amanda, we will need a formal decision by tomorrow regarding legal action. I suggest you leave tonight with copies of these documents." Leave. The word hit me. I had arrived that evening already anxious, accused, small. Now I stood there holding the truth like a blade. Tyler stepped toward me. "I didn't know she forged it," he said again, softer this time. "She told me you wanted to invest quietly, that you didn't want the family to think you were selfish." A bitter laugh escaped me. That sounds like something she'd say. My mother looked furious now, not at me, at him. "You ungrateful child," she hissed under her breath. Child, that word again. We were both in our 30s, but she needed us dependent, needed us positioned where she could maneuver. Flashbacks don't always come as images. Sometimes they come as patterns clicking into place. Suddenly, I was 17 again, overhearing her tell Aunt Cheryl that I wasn't emotionally stable enough to manage my college savings alone. I was 22 again, finding out she'd opened a credit card in my name to build my credit. I was 26 again, realizing she'd told relatives I'd quit my job when I had actually been promoted because she didn't approve of the company. Every misunderstanding, every protection, every time she handled something for me. Control disguised as care. The realization didn't feel explosive. It felt steady, like a door closing. "Amanda," my aunt said gently, "what are you going to do?" That question echoed inside me. What was I going to do? Because here's the truth about betrayal. The first instinct is survival. The second is retaliation. But the hardest choice is boundaries. I looked at my mother. She stood rigid, arms crossed, jaw tight, still believing she could outstare the consequences. "I need the full amount returned," I said slowly. "Every dollar." Tyler nodded immediately. "I'll fix it." "How?" I asked. He hesitated. "I'll sell the car, liquidate what's left of the business assets." "And the rest?" I pressed. His silence answered. There wasn't enough left. Mr. Reeves spoke again. "If repayment cannot be made in full, legal proceedings will secure remaining assets and establish a payment plan." My mother laughed bitterly. "So, you're really going to sue your own family?" The old guilt tugged at me, but something had shifted inside me tonight. "I didn't bring a lawyer to dinner," I said quietly. "You did." Her lips parted slightly, because that was the truth. She had planned to expose me publicly, to ground me like a teenager, to control the narrative before facts surfaced. She hadn't expected the truth to walk through the door in a navy suit. Tyler ran his hand over his face. "Mom, why didn't you just tell her?" "Because she'd make it complicated," she snapped. "No," I said softly. "You didn't tell me because you knew it was wrong." The room went still again. Mr. Reeves gathered the documents and handed me a folder. My hands trembled slightly as I took it, not from fear,
from finality. This contains copies of the transactions, the forged authorization, and Mr. Hutchinson's recorded directive. Directive. Grandpa had anticipated this. He knew. That realization cut deep. Had he known she would try to control it? Had he seen something I refused to see? As Mr. Reeves moved toward the door, he paused. "Miss Hutchinson, I'll await your decision tomorrow regarding legal action. Good evening." The door closed behind him, and suddenly it was just us again. Family. Except nothing felt familiar. My aunt approached me carefully. "I had no idea," she whispered. I nodded. Most people don't see manipulation when it's packaged as love. Tyler stepped closer. "I'm sorry." I studied his face. He looked ashamed, not defensive, ashamed, and that complicated things. "Were you ever going to tell me?" I asked slowly. He hesitated too long. "I didn't think it would come out like this." That wasn't a no, but it wasn't clean either. My mother walked toward the hallway. "This is ridiculous," she muttered under her breath. "We're not discussing legal matters in front of extended family." But no one followed her. No one defended her. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one isolated. She was. And that terrified me more than anything, because control doesn't surrender quietly. It shifts strategies. I felt it in the air. This wasn't over. Tyler turned to me again. "Can we talk, alone?" I considered it, then nodded. We stepped onto the back patio. The cold night air hit my face, grounding me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, "She's been panicking for months." "About what?" "About losing control." The words landed heavier than the dead. "She thinks if she doesn't manage everything, everything falls apart. And so she breaks it herself?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he said something that made my stomach twist. "She said Grandpa changed the will because you manipulated him." I froze. "What?" "She told me you convinced him to give you more because I knew you'd waste it." The accusation hit differently than the money. It struck at something older, something sacred. "I would never," I whispered. He looked conflicted. "I know that now. Now, after the lawyer, after the documents, after exposure. But before that, he had believed her." The realization hurt more than the fraud. "I need you to be honest with me," I said slowly. "Did you ever know she forged it?" He shook his head quickly. "No, I swear." "And if she hadn't been caught?" He looked away. That silence again. And that was when I realized something deeper than tonight's betrayal. I hadn't just been fighting my mother's control. I had been fighting a narrative my entire life. One where I was irresponsible, emotional, unstable. And the more I defended myself, the more dramatic I seemed. It was a perfect trap. Tyler's voice pulled me back. "She's going to spiral." "She already has," I said. We went back inside. My mother was gone, her purse missing from the entry table. She had left, without a word, without an apology, without facing me. And as I stood there holding the folder that proved everything, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not relief. Grief. Because sometimes the truth doesn't free you immediately. Sometimes it shows you that the relationship you hoped to fix was never built on honesty. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. "If you pursue this legally, don't expect to be part of this family again." I stared at the screen. Ultimatum. Control's final weapon. I slowly locked my phone, and that's when another message came through. Unknown number. "We need to discuss an additional clause in your grandfather's will. It changes everything." My heart started pounding again. Changes everything? I looked up at Tyler. He hadn't seen the message. No one had. But something told me this night wasn't just about stolen money. It was about something bigger, something my mother was terrified of, and I was about to find out what it was. The moment my mother turned toward Tyler, something inside me cracked. But not in the way it used to. Not in that soft, defeated way. This time, it was sharp. Tyler didn't say anything at first. He just blinked, like someone had turned on a light too suddenly. "Mom?" he said quietly. But it wasn't confusion in his voice. It was warning. Mr. Reeves adjusted the papers in his hand. The signature on these authorization forms does not match Miss Hutchison's legal signature on file. However, the power of attorney document was submitted from a home IP address registered to this residence. Every head in the room slowly pivoted toward my mother. She laughed. Actually laughed. "This is ridiculous," she said. "Are we seriously entertaining this? Amanda has always been careless. She signs things without reading them. I've had to fix her messes for years." There it was again, the narrative. Careless, emotional, unstable. I felt the familiar urge to shrink, to apologize just to make the tension stop. But I didn't. "Read it out loud," I said. The words surprised even me. Mr. Reeves nodded. "The document grants full authority to manage Amanda Hutchison's trust account. It includes permission to withdraw, transfer, and allocate funds." "How much?" my cousin asked softly. He looked down at the statement. $270,000. A collective gasp moved through the room like wind through curtains. My legs nearly gave out. 270,000. That wasn't just money. That was security. That was a down payment on a house. That was freedom. And I hadn't touched a single dollar. Tyler finally stepped forward. "This is insane. Why would Mom do that? She doesn't need the money." "Tyler," my mother said sharply, but he didn't look at her. He looked at me. And for the first time in my life, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Fear. Because if she didn't need the money, then who did? Mr. Reeves continued calmly. "The funds were transferred in 3 installments over the past 4 months. Each transfer was routed into a joint account." "Joint with who?" Aunt Cheryl asked. Mr. Reeves hesitated for a second. Then he said it. "Linda Hutchison and Tyler Hutchison." The air left my lungs. Tyler's face went pale. "Mom," he whispered. But she didn't look at him this time. She looked at me. And the expression on her face wasn't guilt. It was calculation. "This is a mistake," she said slowly. "Tyler, tell them. Tell them about your business." "Business?" I stared at him. Tyler had been talking for months about launching a tech startup, an app, something about property management automation. Every family dinner, Mom bragged about it like he was the next Silicon Valley success story. "You said investors backed out," I said quietly. "They did." "So where did the funding come from?" Silence. Mr. Reeves closed the folder gently. "Amanda, you are the sole beneficiary of your portion of the estate. Any use of those funds without your consent constitutes fraud." Fraud. The word landed heavy. "Now, hold on," my mother snapped. "You can't just throw that word around. I was protecting her. She's terrible with money." My aunt stood up. "Linda, she's 32. I know how old she is. And I know how she is. She would have wasted it. I invested it for the family." "For the family?" I repeated. "Yes," she said. "Tyler needed capital. His business will support all of us eventually. You're single, Amanda. You don't have children. You don't need that much." There it was again. The truth hiding under all those years of concern. I didn't have children. I wasn't married. So I didn't deserve stability? "So you forged my name?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "I did what a mother does." My stomach turned. "You stole from me." "I redirected funds," she corrected coldly. The room had shifted completely now. No one was whispering about me anymore. They were staring at her. Tyler ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, you said she signed it." "I was handling it. You needed the money. I was protecting this family." "By committing fraud?" Aunt Cheryl asked. My mother looked around the room, searching for someone to side with her. No one did. And that's when she turned on me. "This is your fault." Of course it was. "You always create drama. You always make things harder than they need to be." I felt something rise in me. Not anger. Clarity. "I didn't do this. You did." Tyler stared at the floor.
Mr. Reeves closed his briefcase. Amanda, you have the option to press charges, or we can pursue civil recovery of the funds. The words hung in the air. Press charges? Against my own mother? The little girl inside me wanted to cry. The woman standing there wanted justice. My mother crossed her arms. You wouldn't. It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. And for a second, I almost said no, almost chose peace over truth. But then I remembered every time she called me irresponsible in front of relatives, every time she rewrote reality until I doubted myself, every time she told me I was too much. I looked at Tyler. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't know, he whispered. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he did. Either way, the money was gone. My answer, I said slowly, depends on one thing. 15 faces leaned in. I turned to my mother. Did you ever believe I was capable? The question hit harder than any accusation. For a split second, just a flicker, something like regret crossed her face. Then it hardened. You've always needed guidance. Not yes, not no. Guidance. That was her answer. I nodded slowly, and that's when I made my decision. But before I could speak, Tyler lifted his head suddenly. Wait, he said. Everyone turned to him. What do you mean? I asked. He swallowed. The business, it's not failing because investors backed out. My mother's head whipped toward him. Tyler! He stepped away from her. It's because there never were investors. The room went silent again. I felt the ground shift beneath me. What are you saying? Aunt Cheryl whispered. Tyler looked directly at me. I've been in debt for almost a year. And then he added the words that made my blood run cold. And Mom promised to fix it no matter what it took.
I didn't show anyone the second message. Not Tyler, not Aunt Cheryl, not anyone still lingering in the living room pretending to clean up plates while secretly listening for more fallout. Instead, I slipped my phone into my coat pocket and told Tyler I needed air. The truth was, I needed silence. I stepped outside again, this time walking past the patio and into the dark edge of my aunt's backyard. The cold stung my cheeks, my hands trembled, not from fear exactly, but from the sense that the ground beneath my entire life was shifting. I opened the message again. We need to discuss an additional clause in your grandfather's will. It changes everything. No name, no law firm signature, just that. I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came almost immediately. "Daniel Reeves. I didn't want to mention this in front of your mother." My pulse quickened. What clause? There was a pause this time, longer. Then, "It concerns the family home." I stared at the screen. The family home? Not my aunt's house. Our house. The one I grew up in. The one my mother still lived in. The one my grandfather technically owned until his passing. The one that, according to family legend, would stay with your mother for life. I felt the pieces beginning to rearrange themselves. "What about it?" I typed. Another pause. Then, "You are listed as co-owner." My breath left my body. Co-owner? That wasn't possible. Grandpa would never. But then again, he had recorded a video warning about interference. He had looked directly at the camera and said, "Don't let anyone shrink you." I felt the old living room around me, even though I was standing outside in the dark. I could see it. The worn brown sofa, the fireplace with the crack in the corner tile, the staircase where Tyler once pushed me and blamed it on the dog. That house was more than property. It was power. I typed carefully. Since when? Since the will was finalized 8 months ago. 8 months? 8 months of my mother treating me like a reckless child. 8 months of her controlling access to a house I legally co-owned. 8 months of silence. My phone buzzed again. "Your mother has right of residence, but she cannot sell or refinance without your signature." The world tilted slightly. Sell or refinance? Why would she need to refinance? Unless Unless Tyler's debt was bigger than we knew. Unless she had already tried. Unless that was why she needed the trust money so desperately. I felt nausea rise in my throat. Had she tried to leverage the house? Had she been planning something bigger? Suddenly, grounding me in front of relatives made sense in a different way. If I looked unstable, if I looked irresponsible, if I looked like someone who couldn't manage finances, then any challenge to her control of the house would seem unreasonable. She was building a narrative. Again. I walked back inside slowly. The house was quieter now. A few relatives had left. Others were speaking in hushed tones. Tyler sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Aunt Cheryl approached me. "You okay?" I nodded automatically, but I wasn't. I felt like someone had just opened a hidden door in my childhood home and shown me a secret room that had been there all along. "Tyler," I said gently. He looked up. "Did Mom ever mention refinancing the house?" His expression changed instantly. A flicker. Quick. Nervous. "No," he said too fast. I held his gaze. "Tyler." He swallowed. "She talked about it." My chest tightened. "When?" "A few months ago. She said it was temporary, just to cover gaps in cash flow." "Gaps from your business?" He nodded slowly. "And did she say whose name was on the house?" He hesitated. "She said Grandpa left it to her." There it was. The lie. Not a misunderstanding, not confusion, a deliberate omission. She knows I'm co-owner," I typed quietly. Tyler's face went pale again. "She might." Might. The room felt smaller. I walked toward the kitchen, needing space to think. Memories came back in flashes. Mom insisting I sign some routine estate paperwork a few months ago. I had refused because I hadn't had time to read it. She'd gotten unusually irritated. Mom suddenly locking certain filing cabinets in her home office. Mom saying, "You don't need to worry about the house. It's taken care of." Taken care of? I leaned against the counter. She hadn't just taken money. She had been maneuvering assets. My entire life, I thought the conflict between us was emotional, personality-based. But this wasn't about personality. This was about control over resources, control over narrative, control over me. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mr. Reeves. "I strongly recommend we meet tomorrow morning to discuss this privately." Privately. I typed back. "Does she know about the co-ownership clause?" There was a longer pause this time. Then, "She was present when the will was read." Cold spread through my chest. She knew. She had always known. And yet she had let me believe I had no claim, no authority, no stake. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Resolve. I walked back into the living room. "Tyler," I said calmly, "how bad is it?" He looked exhausted now. "Worse than you think." "How much debt?" He whispered the number. It was higher than the inheritance she had taken. Higher than $270,000. My stomach dropped. "And how much of that is secured against the house?" His silence was the answer. Aunt Cheryl overheard. "Tyler, tell me you didn't." He rubbed his face. "She said it was temporary." Temporary. Everything was temporary until it wasn't. I looked toward the hallway where my mother had disappeared earlier. "She tried to refinance without my signature, didn't she?" Tyler didn't answer directly. "She was looking into options." Options. I laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "She tried to ground me tonight to make me look incompetent." Tyler stared at me. "If I look unstable, if I look irresponsible, if I looked like someone who couldn't manage finances, then any challenge to her control of the house would seem unreasonable." She was building a narrative. Again. I walked back inside slowly. The house was quieter now. A few relatives had left. Others were speaking in hushed tones. "You're not crazy." I swallowed hard. Those words felt like oxygen, because that had been the quiet fear all along. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I exaggerated.
But the facts didn't exaggerate. The forged signature didn't exaggerate. The co-ownership clause didn't exaggerate. Facts are grounding in a way emotions never are. As I gathered my coat, Tyler spoke one last time. She's not going to give up easily. I met his eyes. I know. And that's when my phone buzzed again. Another message from Mr. Reeves. One more thing you should know before tomorrow. My heart pounded. What now? The message continued. Your grandfather amended the will 6 weeks before he passed. Amended? In what way? I typed quickly. What did he change? The reply came slowly. He added a condition regarding the house. If any attempt was made to forge Amanda's authority or misuse estate funds, full ownership transfers to her immediately. The world stopped. Full ownership? Not co-owner, not shared. Mine. If misuse was proven, and misuse had just been proven, I felt the weight of the folder in my hands. I felt the years of doubt in my chest. I felt the shift in power. And for the first time in my life, I understood why my mother panicked. Because if I pursued this, she wouldn't just lose control of the money, she could lose the house.
I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, watching headlights from passing cars drag shadows across the walls. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother standing in that living room, telling me to hand over my keys. I heard her voice calling me irresponsible. I heard my grandfather's voice telling me I was stronger than they believed. And now there was this new truth sitting on my chest like a weight. If I pursued the fraud claim, the house would legally become mine. Not shared, not partial, mine. At 6:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. She knows. My stomach dropped. Knows what? Before he could reply, another message came in. She checked the estate portal this morning. She saw the amendment. I sat up in bed. So she hadn't just been hoping I wouldn't find out. She had been actively monitoring the will, which meant she knew exactly what she was risking, and she still did it. A minute later, Tyler called. I let it ring twice before answering. She's losing it, he said without greeting. How? She's saying Grandpa was manipulated, that the amendment isn't valid, that she's going to fight it. Of course she was. Control doesn't collapse quietly, it claws. I'm meeting Mr. Reeves at 9, I said. There was a pause. Amanda, if you take the house— I'm not taking it, I interrupted. It transfers automatically if fraud is established. But you'll be the one pushing for that. No, I said softly. She pushed for that when she forged my name. Silence. Then Tyler whispered something that twisted deeper than anything else had. She's saying you planned this. I let out a slow breath. Planned what? She thinks you knew about the amendment, that you baited her. The absurdity almost made me laugh. I didn't even know about the co-ownership until last night. I know, he said quickly. I told her. She won't hear it. Of course she wouldn't. Because if I wasn't the reckless daughter, then she was the reckless one. And that narrative was unbearable to her. I'll call you after the meeting, I said. He hesitated. Amanda, if this goes through, where is she supposed to go? There it was, the emotional pivot. Housing my mother, displacing her, even if legally justified. It sounded brutal. She has right of residence, I reminded him, unless I revoke it. And are you going to? I didn't answer, because I didn't know yet. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Here's something no one tells you about standing up for yourself. Empowerment and guilt often arrive together. At 8:59 a.m., I walked into the law office downtown. The lobby smelled like polished wood and quiet authority. Mr. Reeves greeted me personally. You look tired, he said gently. I feel clear, I replied. He nodded, like that made sense. We sat in a small conference room. He laid out the documents again, this time slower. The forged authorization gives us grounds for both criminal and civil action, he explained. The amendment regarding the house is triggered if financial misuse tied to estate funds is proven. And that's already proven, I asked.
The signature mismatch, IP address tracing, and bank routing strongly support it. If we file, the transfer clause activates. I stared at the paperwork. 8 months ago, I had no idea I co-owned the house. Today, I could own it outright. "Why would Grandpa add that?" I whispered. Mr. Reeves leaned back slightly. He requested the amendment after a private meeting. "With who?" "With me," he said. My heart thudded. He expressed concern about pressure being placed on you. Pressure. That word felt gentle compared to what it really was. He didn't name anyone specifically, he continued, but he was firm. He wanted safeguards. I swallowed hard. Grandpa saw it. Maybe not every detail, but enough. "Do you think he expected this?" I asked. Mr. Reeves paused. "I think he hoped it wouldn't happen, but he prepared in case it did." The room felt heavier. I thought about my mother's face last night, the shock when the lawyer walked in, the calculation when she realized she might lose more than money. "What happens if I don't file?" I asked. Mr. Reeves folded his hands. "Then we pursue repayment privately. The house remains co-owned. Your mother retains control of day-to-day residence." "And the forged signature?" I asked. "We would still require repayment, but the amendment would not automatically activate." So this was the crossroads: justice or preservation, accountability or avoidance. I closed my eyes briefly. For years, I had absorbed humiliation to keep peace. But peace built on lies isn't peace, it's delay. "I want to file," I said quietly. Mr. Reeves nodded once. "Understood." As he began preparing the paperwork, my phone buzzed. "Mom." I let it ring. Then it buzzed again, and again. Finally, I silenced it. "Is she trying to reach you?" Mr. Reeves asked gently. "Yes." "You don't have to respond today." I nodded. "But silence has consequences too." By noon, the filing was initiated. Not public yet, but official. I walked out of the office feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. When I reached my car, there she was, standing beside it, my mother. She looked smaller in daylight, not fragile, just stripped of authority. "How dare you?" she said before I could speak. I froze. "How dare I what?" "You blindsided me with legal threats." I stared at her. "You forged my signature." "I protected this family." "You stole from me." Her eyes flashed. "You're being dramatic." There it was, the word that had followed me my whole life: dramatic. "No," I said calmly, "I'm being factual." She stepped closer. "You want the house," she accused. "I want honesty." "You think you can handle that house?" she scoffed. "You can barely handle your own life." The words didn't land like they used to. Instead, they revealed something. She still needed me to be incompetent, because if I wasn't, then her control was unjustified. "You tried to refinance without my signature." Her expression flickered, just for a second. "You wouldn't have understood the paperwork. So you forged it. I signed on your behalf. That's illegal." Her jaw tightened. "You're my daughter. That doesn't give you ownership over me." The silence between us felt decades old. "You're going to make me homeless," she whispered suddenly. The shift in tone almost made me falter. "I haven't revoked your right of residence," I said carefully. "Yet?" I studied her face. Fear was there now, real fear, not theatrical. "What were you planning?" I asked quietly. She looked away. "Tyler needed time. So you would have taken a loan against the house. It would have been temporary. And if the business failed?" She didn't answer, because we both knew the house would have been lost. Not just my inheritance, not hers, all of it. "You were willing to gamble everything," I said softly, "for your brother." There it was again, for your brother. Not for us, not for family, for him. "I am family," I said. Her eyes filled, but not with tears, with anger. "You've always been jealous of him." The accusation was so old it almost sounded rehearsed. "I've never been jealous," I said. "I've been sidelined." She shook her head. "You twist everything." "No," I said gently, "I'm finally seeing it." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then looked back at me. "Is it done?" she asked quietly. I held her gaze. Yes. Her shoulders stiffened. For the first time in my life, I saw her without armor. Not powerful, not righteous, just cornered. And that's when I realized something else. This wasn't just about money. It was about legacy, control over narrative, control over perception, and she was not going to give that up easily. As she walked away, my phone buzzed again. A notification, estate filing, acknowledged, conditional ownership transfer, pending verification. Pending. I stared at the word, because pending means unfinished, and unfinished means unstable. I had triggered something bigger than I realized, and I had the unsettling feeling my mother had one last move left.
That night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Not from my mother, from relatives. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, an uncle from out of state, even my old neighbor who still sent Christmas cards to my mom's house. The story had already started spreading, but not the real one. The version circulating was sharp, dramatic, and twisted. Amanda is trying to take the house from her own mother. Amanda called the police over a family misunderstanding. Amanda is forcing legal action instead of resolving it privately. Narrative. She moved fast. I stared at one particular message from a cousin in Ohio. "I can't believe you'd put Aunt Linda out like this. She's devastated." Devastated. I almost laughed, because I had been devastated my entire life and no one had noticed. Tyler called around 9 p.m. "She told everyone you threatened to evict her immediately." "I didn't." "I know. She has right of residence unless I revoke it. I haven't." "I know," he repeated, "but she's telling people you're unstable, that the lawyer manipulated you." There it was again. Unstable. The word she reached for whenever control slipped. "Is she scared?" I asked quietly. "Yes." The honesty in his voice surprised me. "She keeps saying Grandpa was confused, that you pressured him into the amendment." I closed my eyes. "Do you believe that?" There was a long pause. "No." The single word felt fragile, but real. "Tyler," I said slowly, "I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Okay? If the lawyer hadn't shown up, would you have let them ground me? Publicly?" His silence stretched. Longer than comfort. "I didn't think it would go that far," he finally said. "That's not what I asked." Another pause. "I would have stayed quiet." There it was. Not active betrayal, but passive compliance. And sometimes that cuts just as deep. "Thank you for being honest," I said softly. "I'm trying," he replied. After we hung up, I sat alone in my apartment. The quiet felt heavier than usual. This wasn't just about reclaiming money or property. It was about identity. For years, I had played the role she assigned me, the dramatic daughter, the impulsive one, the one who needed guidance. And now that I was stepping out of it, she was scrambling to rewrite the script. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a relative. It was a screenshot, sent anonymously, a Facebook post, from my mother. I don't usually share personal struggles online, but sometimes even your own children turn against you. I sacrificed everything for mine, and now I'm facing eviction because I trusted too much. My stomach dropped. Eviction. She knew that word would sting. She knew people wouldn't ask for context. They'd react emotionally. The comments were already filling up. "You don't deserve this, Linda. Kids these days are heartless. Praying for you." I felt heat rise in my chest. Not rage, recognition. This was her battlefield. Public sympathy, victimhood, image. I opened my laptop and stared at the screen. I could post the documents, expose everything, show the forged signature, the bank transfers, the amendment clause. But something stopped me. Not fear, strategy. If I responded publicly, it would become spectacle,
and spectacle feeds narrative. Instead, I took screenshots, saved them, and closed the browser. At 11:14 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was from an unknown number. If you care about your reputation, you'll drop the case. My chest tightened. I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. Just typing dots that appeared, then disappeared. A second message came. People believe what they see online. I stared at it. My heart pounded, not from fear of danger, from the realization that she was escalating. I called Tyler immediately. "Did you text me from another number?" He said no. She's posting about eviction, and I just got a message warning me about my reputation." He swore under his breath. "She's been calling people all night. So it's her?" "I don't know," he said, "but she's spiraling." Spiraling, that word felt too gentle. This wasn't emotional collapse. This was retaliation. "I'm not backing down," I said quietly. "I know." There was a pause. "She said something else," he added. "What?" "She said if she loses the house, she'll make sure you lose something too." A chill ran through me. "Like what?" She didn't say. I hung up and locked my apartment door. Even though I knew that wasn't what she meant. She wouldn't break windows. She would break narratives, careers, relationships, trust. And suddenly, I remembered something. 3 years ago, when I applied for a promotion at work, she had casually told my boss at a charity event that I struggled with stress management. I hadn't known why the promotion slipped through my fingers until now. She didn't need to destroy loudly, she just needed to plant doubt. I walked to my bathroom mirror and looked at myself. "You're not crazy," I whispered, because that had always been the quiet fear, that maybe I was exaggerating, maybe I misunderstood, maybe I was too sensitive. But facts don't lie. Documents don't gaslight. At 7:02 p.m. the next morning, Mr. Reeves called. "The conditional transfer has been reviewed," he said. My breath caught. And the misuse clause is valid. Ownership will transfer within 72 hours pending final verification. 72 hours. 3 days. In 3 days, the house I grew up in could legally be mine. And my mother knew it. "Has she contacted you?" I asked. "Yes." My heart skipped. "What did she say?" "She claimed coercion. She suggested you were emotionally unstable and influenced by outside parties." I closed my eyes. There it was again. Unstable. The word she reached for whenever control slipped. Also, she requested an emergency hearing to delay the transfer. Of course she did. Will it work? Unlikely. The evidence is strong. I exhaled slowly. "This will get ugly before it settles," he warned gently. "I know." After we hung up, I checked my phone. More messages, more sympathy directed towards her, more subtle accusations directed towards me. Then one message stopped me cold, from my boss. "Amanda, is everything okay? I've received a concerning call this morning." My stomach dropped. She had moved faster than I thought. I typed back, "Can we talk in person today?" His reply was immediate. "Yes, 2 p.m. My hands trembled. She wasn't just defending herself. She was attacking my stability, my income, my independence. Because if she couldn't control assets, she would try to control perception. At 1:45 p.m., I sat outside my boss's office, heart pounding. I had never been written up, never missed deadlines, but doubt spreads quickly when planted by a parent. He invited me in. He looked concerned, but not accusatory. "Your mother called," he said gently. I nodded. "She said you're going through a difficult emotional episode." I felt the sting, but I didn't flinch. "She told you I'm unstable?" He hesitated. "She implied you might not be in a position to manage major responsibilities right now." There it was. The strategy. Discredit me. Limit my authority. Keep me small. I met his eyes. "Would you like documentation?" I asked calmly. He blinked. "Documentation?" "Yes," I said steadily. regarding why she's saying that. I opened the folder I'd brought. The forged signature, the bank transfers, the amendment clause. I slid them across the desk. My mother is under investigation for fraud estate, I said quietly. She's attempting to discredit me publicly. He scanned the first page, then the second. His expression shifted. Not suspicion, understanding. Is this why she mentioned eviction? I asked. Yes. He leaned back slowly. Amanda, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Relief flooded through me. She's wrong, he added firmly. Your performance has been consistent and strong. If she contacts us again, we'll redirect her to legal. Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them back, because this time the narrative didn't stick. This time I had proof. As I walked out of the office, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. You're making a mistake. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to Mr. Reeves. And that's when another notification came through. Official court acknowledgement. Fraud review complete. Conditional ownership clause activated. Activated. I stopped walking. Read it again. Activated. Which meant my phone rang. Tyler. It's done, isn't it? He asked. Yes. Silence on the line. She just got the notice, he said. I closed my eyes. And? She's not crying, he whispered. That unsettled me more than tears would have. What is she doing? He swallowed. She's packing. Packing. Not pleading, not apologizing. Preparing. And then he said something that made my stomach turn. She says if she can't control the house,
she'll control the story. The house was quiet now. Too quiet. I stood in the driveway of my childhood home, the one I grew up in, the one my mother had tried so desperately to control. The legal notice on my phone confirmed it. The conditional ownership clause had activated. In 72 hours, the house would be officially mine, if no delays, no loopholes, no tricks. But I had learned by now not to underestimate her. I hadn't spoken to my mother since the lawyer called me that morning. She had retreated to her bedroom, slamming doors and texting anyone who would listen, spinning a story where I was unstable, emotionally reckless, and out to ruin her. I knew what she was doing. Public sympathy was her weapon, and I had to be strategic. Tyler's voice came through my earpiece. Are you ready? I took a deep breath. I have to be. This is it, Tyler. No turning back. He was silent for a moment. Just don't let her gaslight you in front of anyone else, not friends, not family, not herself. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. He had seen me crumble before. Not tonight. The front door creaked open. My mother appeared, looking smaller than I remembered, her hands clutching a folder. Her eyes glinted with a dangerous determination, the kind of look that warned you she would not go down quietly. I see you received the notice, she said, voice tight but controlled. Yes, I replied evenly. I did, and I've reviewed it carefully. She laughed softly, almost bitterly. Carefully, Amanda? Don't act like you understand what you're holding. This house isn't just bricks and memories. It's everything our family is built on. You think you can just take it? I'm not taking anything. You already tried to misuse it. The law is simply correcting that mistake. Her face hardened. You think Grandpa would have wanted you to have it? After everything? After the lies, the deception, the way you've always tried to undermine me? I felt my pulse quicken. Lies, deception. Those words had been her shields for years, thrown at me whenever I questioned anything. But now the truth was stronger than her narrative. Grandpa left safeguards for a reason. He knew you might try to control this. He trusted me to handle it fairly, and I intend to. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Fairly? You think fairness is the same as betrayal? Amanda, you're my daughter. You can't just decide to strip me of everything because you feel wronged. I didn't flinch. I'm not stripping you. You still have the right of residence.
What I'm doing is ensuring that no one can abuse authority or trust. That includes you." Her hands trembled slightly, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. She had underestimated me. She had assumed that I would break under pressure, that the patterns of my childhood, humiliation, manipulation, emotional control, would keep me small. But that child no longer existed. I took a step closer, keeping my voice steady but firm. "Mom, this isn't about revenge. It's about justice, about accountability, about recognizing that boundaries exist even between mother and daughter." Her face twisted in anger, then resignation. "You've changed," she whispered. "Yes," I said softly, "I have. And so have you, whether you like it or not." She dropped the folder to the floor, papers scattered like fallen leaves, exposing months of calculations, fake authorizations, and attempts to manipulate estate funds. I picked up the folder, scanning the documents, each one a piece of evidence against years of lies. Her shoulders slumped. You'll never forgive me, will you?" I shook my head slowly. This isn't about forgiveness yet. It's about boundaries, about making sure this doesn't happen again, about me claiming my place in my own life. She blinked, tears threatening to fall, but pride held them back. For decades, she had wielded authority like a weapon. Tonight, the weapon had been turned back on her, not to destroy, but to protect what was rightfully mine. I glanced at the house. Every corner, every hallway, every room held memories of laughter, arguments, and secrets. And now, legally, it would belong to me. But I didn't feel victory. I felt responsibility. Because ownership wasn't just about property, it was about power. And power, when earned through truth and patience, could be a force for healing, not just control. Tyler appeared in the doorway behind me. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I will be, but this is only the beginning." I turned to my mother one last time. "You have two options. You accept the boundary and live with dignity, or you continue this path and risk losing more than just property." Her eyes narrowed, and she didn't respond immediately, but I knew, deep down, she understood that this time the game had changed. As I stepped into the house, the sunlight catching dust motes in the living room, I realized something. The greatest battles aren't fought in courtrooms or in text messages. They're fought in the moments when you choose integrity over fear, truth over manipulation, and yourself over the scripts others have written for you. I sat on the old sofa, feeling the weight of decades lift, piece by piece. And as I looked around, I smiled faintly, whispering to myself, "This is mine, not because of revenge, but because I refused to be silenced." Then my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "If you think this ends here, you're wrong." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, realizing that even after the legal victory, the emotional battle was far from over. And yet, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid, because this time, I was ready.
The message blinked at me, cold and menacing. "If you think this ends here, you're wrong." I stared at it for a long time, heart hammering. My mother had always been clever, but this felt different. Calculated, strategic, not emotional, not a fleeting tantrum. Tyler leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Another one?" I nodded slowly. "She's escalating, Tyler. But this time, it's not just about the house. It's about everything she thinks she can control. My reputation, my life, even my choices." He sighed. "You sure you want to handle this alone?" I shook my head. "I have to, but I want your support, not to fight for me, but to remind me I'm not crazy when she tries to gaslight everyone around me." He nodded. "I've got you." The next morning, the lawyer called. "Amanda, the final verification is complete. Ownership is officially yours." I exhaled, a mix of relief and tension coiling in my chest. This was it. The legal battle was over, but the emotional one, that was still raging. I decided to confront my mother one last time, not with anger, not with threats, but with honesty and boundaries. I walked into the living room. The sunlight slanted across the floorboards, casting long shadows. She was sitting in the armchair, still clutching the folder of papers from the previous confrontation. Her eyes flicked up as I entered, wary, defiant, but tired. "Mom," I said softly, "we need to talk. Really talk." She leaned back. "About what? The house? My reputation?" "About everything," I said. "The lies, the control, the manipulation. About how we've hurt each other for years, and about how we can move forward without destroying one another." For a moment, silence. The kind of silence that held decades of unspoken words. Finally, she whispered, almost to herself, "I didn't know how to be a mother to you, the way you needed." My chest tightened. Years of anger, frustration, humiliation, all boiled down to that single confession. "Mom," I said, "I needed you to see me, not the image of a daughter who would fail, not the dramatic Amanda. Me, the real Amanda." Tears pulled in her eyes. I thought controlling everything would protect you, protect us." "But it hurt," I said gently. "It pushed me away. It made me doubt myself. It made me believe my voice didn't matter." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I see that now. I was wrong." For the first time in years, I saw her as a flawed human, not an antagonist. And for the first time, she saw me as someone worthy of respect, not fear. We sat in silence for a long while, letting the weight of truth settle between us. The house no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like the beginning of a new chapter, a chance to rewrite our story. That evening, Tyler and I sat on the porch steps, watching the sun dip below the rooftops. The air smelled of jasmine from the garden my father had planted. "You did it," Tyler said softly. "You stood up. You claimed what's yours." "I did," I admitted. "But it's not just the house. It's me, finally. I'm learning to set boundaries, to speak up, to protect myself without guilt." "And your mom?" he asked. "She's starting to understand," I said slowly. "It's going to take time, but at least now the foundation is there. We can rebuild something honest, something real." I leaned back, letting the cool breeze wash over me. For so long, I had carried the weight of shame, silence, and fear. Tonight, I felt it lift, because I had learned the hardest lesson of all. Boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary. Truth isn't vengeance, it's freedom, and claiming your life doesn't make you heartless, it makes you brave. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was a message from Caleb. "Amanda, I'm proud of you. Thank you for standing strong." I smiled, a real, unguarded smile, and for the first time in years, I felt the warmth of being seen, not just as a daughter, but as myself. The house was mine, yes, but more importantly, my life was mine. And for once, I was finally free. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you loved most? How did you reclaim your voice? Share your story in the comments.